Welcome to Mythic Gaming. Thanks for joining me today. If it's your first time here, I appreciate you stopping by. If you're returning, I appreciate you as well. If it is your first time here, please like, comment, and subscribe so that I can get these next videos out to you as soon as I load them up. Today we're going to go over Preservation Evoker. It's a spec that I just really started playing this last week to build out this video. It is a ton of fun. I've healed in the past. I used to be a healer main way back in Wrath. This is by far the most fun I've had. It feels really good to play. The buttons are powerful. The movement is fun. You can do a lot of things. There are quite a few buttons that just feel really good to push. And with things like stasis and other abilities like echo, there are some really cool things you can do with it to help you get through those tougher moments of a key. With that said, let's get into the build. For Preservation Evoker, there's a few different builds you can play within the spec. I've opted to go with a build that has Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, and Emerald Blossom. I feel having these three core abilities gives you a lot of flexibility inside keys, and it can help compensate for maybe a group that is a little bit short in a couple of places. But when you're with a group that is absolutely pumping, it also allows you to heal quickly on the move and to keep up. So first we're going to start on the Evoker side of the talent tree. Across the top we go with our Landslide, our Obsidian Scales, and our Expunge. Just like Evokers that are playing DPS, these three are constant. The Expunge allows you to remove a poison, which is incredibly helpful for your group. The Landslide is a root, and the Obsidian Scales is going to be one of your main defensive cooldowns. After that, we go with Disintegrate, channels 20% faster, Permeating Chill, which is going to just give a slow to your blue abilities, and then Verdant Embrace. Down the middle, we go Obsidian Bulwark, which means we get another charge of our Obsidian Scales to help us stay alive. We are still pretty squishy as a healer in general, just like we are playing DPS, where you're a glass cannon. Well, now you're kind of a glass healer in the sense that we get hit hard, but we heal really big. Enkindled, so Living Flame deals 6% more damage, but more importantly here, it will deal 6% more healing. Scarlet Adaptation is a really cool ability, so it's going to store 20% of your effective healing, up to 17,000. And the next time we use Living Flame as a damaging spell, it's going to add that on top. Well, which is an interrupt, so you really should take it. There aren't enough healers with interrupts. And then Cauterizing Flame. So this is a super important ability. It not only removes poison, like Expunge does, but it also removes bleeds, curses, and diseases. And then if that wasn't enough, it also heals. So it is on a 1 minute cooldown, which does sometimes feel bad. But there's a few fights out there where removing a bleed is make or break for that fight. So this is super critical to have and to know how to use it. Tip the Scales, just like in the DPS build, is going to give you an instant empowered ability. So it's going to be our Spirit Bloom or our Dream Breath in this instance. Attuned to the Dream, so it's just going to increase our healing that we do and receive. Draconic Legacy, it's a 6% stamina boost. Inherent Resistance is going to reduce the amount of damage that we take. Bountiful Bloom, so now it's going to heal 2 extra allies within our Emerald Blossom. Blast Furnace, so it just increases the length of our dot that we put out with our Fire Breath. Panacea, so Emerald Bloom instantly heals yourself for 30,000, so that's quite nice. There's a few abilities. When I was learning how to play, I wasn't sure if I was going to heal myself with them or not, so having this with Panacea really does help. Oppressing Roar is kind of a filler spot. It's here to get to the next couple of nodes, but it does have a purpose in a couple weeks where you want to have an extra Soothe in the group. We will remove the point from Terror of the Skies and go into Overawe, which will give us a Frontal Cone Soothe. But I didn't need it this week, so I went with the Stun instead. But continuing on, we go into Lush Growth. So the majority of our big healing spells are green spells. So this is just going to instantly give it 10% more. How can you argue with that? and Renewing Blaze. Just like in DPS, this is our big defensive. So you want to pop it just before you take damage. 100% of the damage you took in that 8-second window is now going to get healed back to you. That's massive. Leaping Flames. So our Fire Breath causes our next Living Flame to strike one additional target per empower level. This is quite powerful. It happens a lot. You're using your Fire Breath way more than you think you might, especially if damage your group is taking is pretty low. This is nice. It's nice to have. Aerial Mastery. Hover gains an additional charge. Being able to move, always key, especially getting out of different ground effects. Keeping up with the group, trying to heal on the fly as you're moving to the next group is super handy. I definitely found that as a healer I was using my hover less than I did as a DPS, but I think that's more of a comfort level rather than a playstyle. Fire Within, so Renewing Blaze's cooldown is now reduced by 30 seconds. So we get our big defensive 30 seconds sooner. Terror of the Skies. So this is when our Deep Breath is going to stun enemies for 3 seconds. This is super helpful because when I didn't have it and I was using my Deep Breath, I was taking a lot of damage and I was usually dying. So being able to stun them protects myself and it reduces the damage that the group is going to take for 3 seconds. So now I can use Deep Breath as a movement ability and feel pretty confident that I'm going to be protected with it, as well as generally stunning. There's a few bosses where I wasn't sure if I had a stun, and I was trying to think, what's my stun going to be? Then I remembered using Deep Breath. So the boss in Oldemon, when you need to stun him for the orbs, we were really low on stuns one run in our group, and this was the stun that got us through that boss. Zephyr. So this is going to pick up the group and help you move 30% faster for 8 seconds. It's also going to be a 20% damage reduction for area effect attacks for your entire party. So anything that's an AoE, it will not affect direct damage or things that you're standing in, but anything that pulses out or hits the whole group and it's unavoidable, this will reduce it by 20%. On the preservation side, you're going to start with Echo, which is super key to the build, and you obviously have to take it to get into the build at all. We don't use Echo so much by itself, but it does interact with something later on, and it is super key to the build. Dream Breath. This is our first empowered heal spell ability. So at 1 empower, it's going to do a small burst heal with a big hot on the end. As you power it up, that hot length is going to decrease, but the burst heal is going to increase. And this becomes really important. Later on, we get a skill that's going to allow us to empower it one more time. So it's a really big burst heal with a small hot on the end, and it really covers both sides of the spectrum. Beside that is Reversion. So this heal is really cool. It actually repairs the damage. So it's not just a blanket hot that's going to go out there. You actually want them to take some damage, put it on there, and it's going to heal them for some of that damage back. The nice thing about Reversion is it can actually crit, and when it does, it extends its duration by 1.6 seconds. Temporal Compression, so each cast of our bronze spells is going to allow our empowered spells to reach that maximum a little bit faster, and this is also going to stack up to 4 times. So it goes from 5% to 20%. Essence Burst, so Living Flame has a 20% chance to make our next Essence ability free, and the ability right below it, Essence Attunement, means that can stack twice. So that means we could have a free Echo or a free Emerald Blossoms. And we can have that stored so we have 2 of them ready to go. After that, we have Rewind. Now this is one of those buttons I was talking about earlier that feels really strong to push. So what it does is it takes 50% of the damage that your party or your raid just took and takes it away. It's just gone. See ya. Not only that, in a raid it's going to heal for a minimum 21,000, and then in a party that's increased by 100%, so you're looking at a minimum of a 42,000 heal on top of just deleting 50% of the damage you just took. It's massive. On a big bursting stack or a big AoE ability that the group doesn't have an external for, this is the best one to use. Not only that, is it's only a 4-minute cooldown. You can spec in, bring its ability down and give you a second charge, which some builds do play with. I personally don't, because we have so much utility. There's only a few times that I've really run into in each key where rewind is massive, but when you get to push it, it is the best feeling. Continuing on, we got Spirit Bloom. So this is another one of our empowered spells. So at the first empowerment, it is only going to heal a single target. Each time you level that up, it's going to heal one additional target. So it goes from 1 to 2 to 3. Now again, we take an ability later on that's going to allow our empower spells to have one more level. So now we can actually hit 4 targets with the Spirit Bloom at max empower. Time Dilation is another one of those buttons I was talking about that feels really strong to use. So what Time Dilation does is you cast it, you put it on your target, and now it's going to stretch out that damage window. So it's like Stagger on a Brewmaster Monk, where instead of it all being one big bursty hit, now it's spread out as a dot over a set amount of time, which gives you more capacity to heal through it or mitigate it in general. Emerald Communion. So this is an ability that's very similar to Tranquility from a Druid, where you just cast it and you're pulsing AoE healing out to your group. The other thing that this does is it does give you back 2% of your base mana every 0.8 seconds for about 4 seconds, and then any overhealing that is done is transferred to another injured ally. So it's the most effective and smart heal that we have. The other thing that's really unique about it is we can cast it while we're stunned, disoriented, incapacitated, or silenced. And then, because wait, there's more, we're going to take an ability just below it called Dreamwalker, which now means we can move while casting Emerald Communion. So now it gets us out of that disorient, or gets us out of that stun. It's an incredibly powerful smart heal. We can cast it on the move, and it's going to give us back mana. It's unreal. So strong. Spiritual Clarity. So Spirit Bloom's cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Always nice. Golden Hour. So Reversion instantly heals a target for 15% of the damage that they had recently taken in the last 5 seconds. And then it also puts that hot on them. And Temporal Anomaly is the most integral part of our rotation as a Preservation Evoker. So with the ability directly below it, which is Resonating Sphere, every time we cast our Temporal Anomaly, it's also going to add Echo to the targets that it hits. So you can put Echo on your entire group with one cast, and you have it all the time. It is a 12-second cooldown. Doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's always up and always available for you. You throw out this Temporal Anomaly. Everyone gets an Echo. You can do a 1-power Spirit Bloom and give everyone a big burst heal. Other thing we can do is we can throw that Temporal Anomaly. We can hit everyone with a 1-power Dream Breath. So now they each get 2 really big hots on them. It makes healing through bursting attainable. You can hit 6 stacks of bursting. You know it's coming, and you'll get comfortable with it and see these things kind of happening. But as it happens, you hit them, they have a huge heal on them. It's really easy to heal through it. They got 2 big hots, you empower a Spirit Bloom, you're done. Everyone stays alive, the group is moving on. It's quite great. It's also incredibly effective in a raid in that exact same way. Now it can also work if there's a huge chunk of damage that went out. You throw out your Temporal Anomaly, you tip the scale into a big Dream Breath. Now everyone's going to get 2 bursts of that really big bursty heal, and they still get a little hot on them after. It's fantastic. A Time Lord means that Echo is now going to replicate 50% of the healing. So let's look back at Echo again real quick. So what it does is it wraps that target in that temporal energy, which is going to heal them a little bit and causes our non-echo ability to repeat on them up to 105%. But now Echo is also going to add another 50% on top of that. So our big spell that we just hit them, say we did Temporal Anomaly into a 1 power Dream Breath. So we've got 1 hot on them for our normal 72,000 over 16 seconds. Now our Echoed ability is going to do 105% of that. And Echo is also going to replicate another 50%. So it's almost like having a third hot on that target for hitting the same amount of buttons. Call of Ysera, so Verdant Embrace, which we haven't really talked about much. We take it over on the Evoker side. So Verdant Embrace is going to increase the amount of healing our next Dream Breath is going to do, or our Living Flame is going to do. So Verdant Embrace again is the heal where you leap to the target. Now it's going to increase the amount of healing we do to them. And with our next ability, Life Bind, it means that the target that we just leaped to is now linked to us for 5 seconds. And all that means is 40% of the healing that they take, or 40% of the healing that you take, is going to get transferred. Punctuality means that we got 2 charges of our reversion. Ouroboros, so every time we cast our Echo, it's going to grant 1 stack of Ouroboros, which is going to increase the healing of our next Emerald Blossom by 30%. This stacks up to 5 times, which gives us a total of 150% increased healing. Font of Magic, so this is where we are extending our Empower skills by that extra 1 level, so from 3 to 4. Energy Loop means that our Disintegrate deals 20% more damage, and it regenerates 7,200 mana. So more so in a raid setting, when we're on a long boss fight, we have a little bit of downtime. We can use up some of our Essence into our Disintegrates, or even our Essence Burst in our Disintegrates, and then we get free mana back over that duration. Renewing Breath means that our Dream Breath healing is increased by a flat 30%. That's huge. Grace Period, so our healing is increased on our targets that are affected by our reversion. Timeless Magic means that our reversion, our time dilation, and our Echo are going to last 30% longer. Now our Echoes we're usually using up pretty quickly, but 30% longer on our reversion means we get that 30% more healing, and 30% longer on our time dilation means that we can stagger that much more damage that would have initially been a burst and convert it into a dot that we can deal with after. Stasis is the capstone that we take. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown. It's unique to Evokers, and what you do is you activate it, and it will store the next 3 helpful spells that you cast. Now why is this important? Because it's building this big pool of healing that you can now expend by reactivating the Stasis ability or allowing 30 seconds to elapse, and it can reuse spells that are now on cooldown without incurring an additional cooldown. There's some pretty unique things we can do within our Stasis window. One thing you can do is store a really big heal. If you know there's going to be a large damage event coming up, you could throw out a Temporal Anomaly, pop your Stasis, go into a Tip the Scales Dream Breath, a full empowered Spirit Bloom, and then using our built up increased Emerald Blossom healing, use it, capturing the 150% increased healing effect, and store a massive heal inside that Stasis window. I'm easily getting above 100k HPS using that method inside my Stasis window. Now the other thing you can do is you can capture cooldowns that aren't incurred. What I mean by that is if you know there's a window coming up in a boss fight where you're going to need to cleanse some bleeds, you can preempt this by popping your Stasis, popping Cauterizing Flame on 3 different targets that don't have bleeds, and it won't incur the cooldown. If that bleed effect does go out, you can now repop your Stasis, remove 3 bleeds without a cooldown, use your Cauterizing Flame on a 4th, and now you only have 1 bleed to deal with instead of the 5. So it takes the fight from being challenging to simple really quickly. Okay, now we're going to go over any of the spells in our spellbook that we haven't touched on going over the build. So firstly will be the Azure Strike. Now this isn't an ability we're using a whole lot. It is an instant cast blue spell, and why is that important to us? Because we took the ability to use our blue spells as a slow. If there's a mob that's chasing you, you can very easily turn around, hit them with an Azure Strike on the fly, slow them down, and now you have a better chance of evading them. Blessing of the Bronze is our raid or party buff that we bring to the group. So all it does is reduce the cooldown on our major movement ability. So things like Stampeding Roar, Heroic Leap, our own Hover, Sprint, all these items have a shortened cooldown because of this buff. Fury of the Aspects is our Bloodlust or our Heroism equivalent. Pop it, 30% haste for 40 seconds for the party or the raid. Very straightforward. Our Expunge is actually going to change over to Naturalize. Now this happens because we are in a healer spec, and as a healer we get the ability to remove one magic effect. So last thing to go over is how our mastery works. Now it's very straightforward. Healing done to allies is increased by the percentage of our mastery as long as our health percentage is above theirs. What does that mean? If we're at 90% and they're at 85%, the healing we do to them is increased by our mastery. So in this instance, I have 64% mastery. Now if we're both at 85%, our mastery is not in effect. If they're at 85% and I'm at 80, our mastery is not in effect. So it's only when our health percentage is above theirs. So in the event where you're all at 100% and the whole group takes damage, you often will have a Living Flame proc. You want to spend that on yourself, get your percentage above theirs, and then heal the group up, and you're going to capture that extra healing from your mastery. Okay, so we're just going to go over a few combinations for healing here. So you would Temporal Anomaly, let the Echo gather, 1 power Dream Breath. You can see that this dummy now has 2 of the hots ticking on him. The way Spirit Bloom works is with 1 power, it only targets 1 character onto ourselves from our talents. Reversion, you can put it on, it's instant cast. It's like a hot, the way that it collects. And here it's increasing how fast we get to cast our Empower spells. And it stacks. So you can reset this by using your Reversion. Using Echo builds up our Ouroboros buffs, which then empower our Emerald Blossom to a heal for an extra 150%. Now inside the stasis window, I'm going to show you how to stack bleeds. So stasis is up, 1 bleed on that target, 1 bleed on that target, 1 bleed on that target. Now we have 3 orbs built up. That means we have 3 helpful spells stored. So as I cast, we'll walk closer and zoom in. As I cast Stasis, it's going to cast it on those 3 targets that I had selected previously, and then we'll be able to use it on the 4th target here. That would be 4 bleeds cleansed, and only this poor guy still has his bleed on him. But that's okay, because we're going to throw our Reversion out. 1 Dream Breath. We can heal him with a Spirit Bloom. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see a specific class done next, leave it in the comments, and maybe I'll pick it.